Okay, we're going to tie a thorax style bluing olive. This is a low floating fly. You can see the hackle is trimmed off on the bottom of it about level with the hook point. Start my thread about the size of the eye, behind the eye, wrap to the midpoint, and then back towards the eye about 10%. And let the thread hang there. I'm using 6/0. Certainly for the smaller flies, you'd switch to an 8/0. This is a whiting tailing fiber pack feather. Life cycle dubbing, any dry fly dubbing will work. And this is the Orvis Big Eye hook. I like to use these. And the mottled turkey flats are from Nature's Spirit that I've got here, and I'm using a medium done. This has got a bunch of fibers on the bottom that I strip off, and then I'm going to snip the stem right up in the top of the V, and that gives me a bunch of usable material here. And I want it to be about twice the width of the shank, so I just split the distance I want to trim off, cut it off the feather, and fold it dull to dull. And if I fold this right and I measured it right, I should have about the width of the gap. The width of the gap, or 1.5 the width of the gap, is a good width for this feather. Pinch that right down on the top, wrap back a few wraps. If I measure this and it's the right length, and it appears to be, I'm going to go ahead and trim these off fairly straight. Make no attempt to wrap those butts down. And normally you'd see people bend this wing back and then wrap in front of it and build a ramp up against it, but we're not going to do that. We're going to use a different technique for turkey flats. You just hold it up, wrap around the front like this, and come back and catch the thread in those ends that you didn't wrap down. And if you pull real hard, you can even tip the wing back too far. So you just get it so it's standing up about where you want it, and once you do have it where you want it, then you wrap those ends down, and there's your wing standing up, and it's just that one wrap holding it in place. So this is the dubbing I'm going to use. I'm going to make a dubbing ball in the back to split my tail fibers. You can see I'm using very little dubbing. Get here to the back and make a dubbing ball. Move up a little bit and get my tailing fibers. I want 4 to 6 tailing fibers on each side of the hook. Get the ends even on these and trim them off. Measure them for length against the shank. Spin my bobbin, tighten up my thread a little bit, and trap those on the far side. Prepare 4 more for this side, measure them. Spin my bobbin again, come up and catch those. Hold them down. Check my ones on the other side. And wrap them right up against the dubbing ball, and that makes them split nicely. Trim these ends off because I've decided they're the right length, and neaten up that underbody so that I can dub the rest of the body. Again, you can see I'm using very little dubbing. Wrap back, catch up with the dubbing ball, and then wrap forward, stopping shy of the wing so that there's room to tie in the hackle. A little extra dubbing to make a taper there. There's a twist in this feather, but I'm going to see if I can use it and get away with it. Strip the ends here. Take a little more off the bottom, holding it with the dull side to the back. I'm going to spin my thread and come up over this. Now see how I trap that and then wrap behind right there. I'll show you that in slow motion here a little later. At the end of it, you'll see me mount this. It's a good way to secure the feather if you don't have a lot of room or a lot of stem. So I'm going to do some dubbing in front here so that I don't have such a drop off from behind the wing to in front of the wing. And a little more dubbing so I can cover up the tie-in point for the hackle. Dubbing behind and in front of my feather. Wrap to the front and bring the bobbin cradle into play. And start wrapping this, and put my hand right in front of the camera. So let me switch to another fly that I did, And I'll show you the wrapping procedure. You want to kind of zoomed in on this for you too. You want to be spacing these wraps out. And when you get to the wing, you know, just grab it and pull it out of the way if it's in your way. Wrap tight against it. Again, keeping your wraps spaced. Make about 5 wraps to the front. Take your bobbin off the cradle and tie this down. I just come up underneath like this and trap it and trim that off and tie a whip finish knot. Now we'll transfer back to the original fly. I wanted you to be able to see how I wrap that and the spacing of it. Tie a whip finish knot on that, trim that off, and you'd like to leave all that hackle so carefully wrapped, but this is supposed to be a low floating fly, and the split tails help stabilize it. So get a couple of these fibers I don't like that are sticking out of the way here, and then get everything aligned reasonably good, and then turn this upside down and trim those hackles right off. Just hate to do this, but they actually, I do think, fish better. I've convinced myself of it. So there you have it. There's a thorax style blue wing olive tied using rotary fly tying techniques. Now here's a couple of pointers that you can use. If you get a wing and it's not the way you want it, and you get to this point, you can still adjust your wing by just making another wrap around it. So if you find yourself in that situation, you have to adjust your wing, it's as simple as that, just adding another wrap. So let me jump this video ahead and get to where the tie-in of the hackle takes place. See, I'm spinning my bobbin to tighten that thread up a little bit. I bring my hackle stem in, wrap over the top of it, and the normal routine is to keep wrapping towards the wing, like this wrap would be. But instead, what I'm going to do to secure this hackle is wrap behind it, and this makes an X over that hackle stem. And even though I've got a really short stem here, I'm not worried about it pulling out when I go to wrap my hackle, because I did that X over the top of it. And so then I would just go ahead and wrap forward and secure that down and add the dubbing to the front.